going to share a couple stories with you, and then we're going to talk about humility, experiencing humility, and you experience it from being humbled, and sometimes you experience humility coming from a place of humility, right? And how can that help in our business? So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. So we're all business people, we're all salespeople, we're business owners and whatnot. So back in 1999, anybody remember 1999, a dot-com thing? Remember that, right? I come from the world. I got out of college, graduated with a finance degree, and I was a stockbroker pretty darn quick. I mean, right a week, my baseball season ended, or career ended in May of 1990. And right out of that, I got my Series 7, became a stockbroker, did that for 3 or 4 years. I got out of it. However, I liked the game. I liked the action, right? I had that little gambler thing going on. In fact, I'll sit here and tell you, and maybe we don't show this on YouTube, but I was a little bookie at age 13, right? So I had that fever in me, and I like action. I like when we're busy. I like the referrals. I like, I just like it. There's something about it. So, but I like the stock market, so I got involved in the stock market. I still invested. I wasn't making a lot of money, but what I was doing, I was taking maybe, $100 here, $1,000 there, $500 here, and I was just investing a little bit at a time, 5 shares here, 10 shares of this. So it was 1999, and it was 1999, and I'm playing the dot-coms, and I'm doing IPOs, I'm doing naked calls and covered puts and covered this, and I don't know if anybody knows that game, but I was playing it, and I was having fun, and I was doing really well. But you could throw a dart at a dartboard blindfolded back then and make some money. So what happened was it was early 2000. My wife and I are driving down the road, and at that point, I was 33, about 33 years old, and I'm feeling pretty good. And I got a net worth about $750,000. 33 years old, I'm feeling pretty good, coming from where I came from. 1 of 7 kids, growing up poor, Blair Edison neighborhood, and I said to my wife, I will never forget this. We were driving down Delaney Valley Road. I can remember the time and the place. We were driving down Delaney Valley Road towards Towson, and I made that comment. I said, hon, we could go the way we live, we could go the next 11, 12 years if I don't make another dime. We're fine. I made that comment. Of course, that's 20 some years ago, by the way. I made that comment. The next day, things started going bad in the stock market. The next day. So we've all dated when we were younger, right? We all had this situation where you're not each other. Right? We all dated somebody where you're in love and things are going really good, right? And you're going at it for a few months, years, whatever, and all of a sudden you have a big argument. And all of a sudden you're thinking, maybe I'm not supposed to be dating this person. But you stay in. You stay in the game. You're like, it's going to get better. And then you get back in it. You're like, okay, I'm going to be better. A relationship's going to get better. And then something else happens. It's a little worse. Like, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I'm going to stay with her. I'm going to stay with him. And it gets worse. And it gets worse. And the day that it hurts the most is when you cut it off, right? Would you agree with that? The day it hurts the most, cut it off, right? So here it is. It's January, February of 2000. Market starts going south. And I'm like, all right, it's going to bounce back. And I'm like, I'll stay in a little longer. A couple days later, it's going south some more. I'm like, it's got to come back. It's going to bounce back. A week or two later, it's down some more. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get out now because it's got to bounce back. It's going to bounce back at some point. So it went down, and it went down, and it went down. Anybody know what trading on margin is?
Oh, yeah.
Dangerous game, right? So what you're doing, when you trade on margin, you're borrowing against the equity you have in the market. So I was playing that game. And I started getting margin call after margin call after margin call. What that means is every day I was getting a call, you have to sell something to cover your debt here. Playing that game. So then it was March of 2000, pulled into my driveway, and all I had left was 30 shares of T. Rowe Price stock. It's all I had left. And I get a call, my last margin call, Rob, you got to sell everything you have. So I had a portfolio of $450,000 in the stock market and Morgan Stanley that went to zero. It went to zero. And I had to go in and tell my wife I lost everything. And it was painful. So I walked in. I'll never forget, my wife had changed my son's diaper on the floor, and I'm like, honey, I got to talk to you. She goes, what's going on? I said, well, all that money that we had in the stock market, remember that comment that I made 3 or 4 months ago? it's gone. All we have left is some equity in the house and a little bit of retirement plan. That's all we got left. And I cried, man, I cried. And she goes, I'll never forget her words. She said, that's all right, honey. I know you, you're gonna be all right, you're gonna come back. Never forget that. So right then and there, I knew I married the right woman, right? Right? So I was humbled. You know, so I look at being humble, starting at the top and being brought down. I can tell you, in 12 years ago, I go swimming. I was taking swim lessons because I didn't know how to swim. I knew how to do the doggy paddle, but I didn't know how to swim. So I take swim lessons, and I get out of the pool, and I get my shower, and I feel like I got water in my ear. And I'm shaking my head, and you usually hear the swish, right? Couldn't hear the swish, but I'm like, something's going on here. Waited to the next day, and I'm like, it feels clogged. And I would do this with this finger, and I put a phone up to my ear. I couldn't hear anything. Next thing you know, I go to Patient First, which I don't know if anybody knows anybody that works here, but I will never go there again because I got misdiagnosed. But anyway, so I go there, and the guy says, oh, you just got some congestion. Take some nasal spray and whatever that stuff is, Sudafed, and it'll clear up. And like the next day, I'm like, something's not right. So I go see a ENT, go do a hearing test. 100% loss of hearing in my right ear. I'm like, Doc, how does that happen? And he goes, Rob, sometimes it happens. People wake up and it goes that way. I'm like, Doc, what are my odds of getting this hearing back? And he goes, 10, 20%. I'm like, Doc, I didn't do anything wrong. He goes, Rob, this just happened. I said, what about a hearing aid? He says, Rob, a hearing aid amplifies noise. You're not hearing anything, so amplifying 0 of 0 equals 0. So I'm like, so I was devastated. And I left the doctor's office, drive my car, bawling, right? And I'm like, I got humbled, got taken away. So I look at humility, at being humbled as something like you're high on your horse and something gets taken away. So how does that apply to what this tonight? You know, the market, the real estate market's been crazy for 2 years. It's been crazy. Now, we all have our own businesses. Some businesses thrive in this market and some don't, right? But the real estate, the lending market, it's been hard, right? So we've been like, let's just face it, it's been like printing money. You get a listing, you're gonna make money. You got to maybe put like 30 offers in for a buyer to get a loan for 2 years here. But it's changed. It's changed. And the thing is, the question is, how do you respond to that? When you get humbled, when you get something taken away, when you're high on your hog and you're brought to your knees, how do you respond to that? And I think that's what makes all the difference in the world. That day I told my wife, I said, I got two choices. I can either stick my head in the sand like an ostrich, or I can come out fighting. And I said to her, I think you know which one I'm gonna do. I'm still in tears, but I think you know which one I'm gonna do. So we got inflation, we got high rates, we got high gas prices, we got crazy food prices. You know, that's all creates anxiety, and it creates worry. How are we going to respond to that, right? And when you come from a place of humility, you're basically abandoning yourself to the will of God, is what you're doing.
Amen.
And that's what you're doing. And it's about surrender. And it's about responding to the right way. What does that have to do with this business, right? When you come from a place of humility, you come from a lower place to work yourself up to the way to the top. You are a servant leader. You're putting others first. You're thinking of yourself less, not less of yourself, right? So what can we do in this business, right? In our business we got to put others first. We got to make sure we're putting others first. And how do you do that? You get to know them first. You got to build relationships. We are all in a relationship business. We got to get to know the people that we're working with and dealing with and who our prospective client is. And when we build those relationships, that's what we can control. We can control that relationship. We can control, as I said it over and over again, the activities that we do, whether it's writing a note or making a call, going seeing people. I can control that, but I can't control that outcome. None of us in here can control any outcome. We can't. We do the activities that lead to outcomes, and that's when you abandon yourself to the will of God and you let Him take over. And it's how we respond to that. So there's 4 types of humility. There's natural humility, and God, thank God for those who are able to just be naturally humble, right? They're just people out there that are naturally that way. Then you got the humbled humility, is what I explained to you. I was humbled more than a few times over my lifetime, but you get humbled and you learn what humility is. Then there's the contrived humility. That's the phony humility. I'm going to walk around and let everybody know I'm humble and I'm trying to manipulate something. That's the last place any of us should be or want to be. But people do that in business. They do it. And then there's the intentional humility. And the intentional humility is for those who aren't the naturally humble people. So in other words, if you want to be intentionally humble, you have to be able to be aware and recognize your little idiosyncrasies, your moments of pride, your moments of arrogance, and then coach yourself through that and be intentional about overcoming that. Be intentional about getting through that. Because look, I could be a prideful asshole sometimes, I could. But I know when I get my rear end handed to me, sometimes I'm like, where was I prideful? Where was I arrogant? And I'm not saying it's a punishment or anything, but sometimes when things happen, I look back. And it's just like that investment thing that happened back in 2000, I made that statement. You know, I got 11, 12 years, I'm fine. Nothing's gonna mess me up. And the next day it went south. So when we have the awareness piece is the foundation. To be aware when either you need to be humble or humbled. Sometimes, look, I've been around, I've been at conferences and I've been networking, and I've heard people say, man, that guy needs a dose of humility. That girl needs a dose of humility, because they might be walking around with a sense of arrogance about them, like they're better than anybody, or they know everything and they're never wrong. Look, none of us is 100% right, none of us. And I tell people in real estate business, the moment I think I know everything about real estate, that's the moment I'm getting my rear end handed to me. That's what's going to happen. So if you fall into that category, just recognize it. That's all I'm saying. Just recognize it, and then go to work on you. Because that's the more a person who's willing to go to work on themselves, that's a humble person. Because we only go to work on something that we think needs work. But if we don't think we need that, that's a sense of arrogance. That's a sense of pride. So take these thoughts that I was talking about today, just take them, marinate on them. I'm not here to change anybody. I'm a work in progress. I'm going to get humbled. I'm going to continue to get humbled. I want to come from a place of humility, but when I'm not, I need to recognize it. And so one of the things we need to do is recognize in business, part of humility is like serving others, but respecting others. Respecting others in their roles and who they are, respecting others' feelings and thoughts. That's like, I might not agree with you, but I can respect you. That's okay.
That's
we can have
the United States. We don't have to agree.
Right.
Just respect each other.
We were having a conversation about agreeing to disagree yesterday. We were talking about that. But, you know, it's to respect each other for their roles, but know what those roles are. Know what they are. And then just give grace to people. Give grace. Give grace and understanding to people. And then it's almost like, it's almost a sense of freedom. But we don't want to, because we walk around like this with our hands held tight, and I can't let this go and I can't let that go. But when we hold our fist tight like that, what does that do? What does it create?
Looks like you want to fight.
Tension. It creates tension. But when we let it go, you're at ease, and it's a sense of peace and a sense of freedom. That's the life I want to live. Do I live it every day? Hell no. But am I working to it? Am I trying? Yes, I am. So just think about these things, and look, the world's not falling apart. Are we in a crazy time? Yeah. Do we have to get through this? Yeah. Are some people getting more humble than others? Yeah. But how are we going to respond to this market? How are we going to respond to this life that we're living right now? Because look, at some point we had to pay the piper with inflation. We had to pay it. But now how are we going to respond? So think about how you're going to respond to the things that are going on in our world today, with your families today, your business today. Think about that, and then just move forward. And then that's what I'm looking forward to, being able to master that. And am I ever going to be perfect at that? No. But do I want to master that? Yeah. And so it's about coaching each other, about, who was I talking? Was I talking to you earlier about giving people words of encouragement when they're struggling or something? I don't know if you or somebody else I was talking to.
Well, I hear that from her all the time.
And be okay. It was you, Myron, we're talking about it. It's okay to if you're struggling. Sometimes we think we're especially guys, we have this thing of like, we're too tough and we can't talk to people. Part of humility for guys being able to say, hey, you know what? I am struggling. I do need help. I do need to talk to somebody. So again, take these words, take them to heart, marinate them. Think about it. We got the holidays coming around here. There's people in a lot worse position than some of us are, you know. And what can we do for others? They say, look, if you're looking for a hug and you're looking for a hug and you're frustrated because you don't have a hug, go give somebody else a hug.